URI path abrev to the path that is already given in proxy URI. Is that a feature or a bug?
That's a relic from editing over from the older stage where those could be combined more freely. And to some extent, I thought there could be cases where the proxy does even weirder things, and that would have accounted for that, but yeah, it doesn't. So the idea is that if there is, for example, a reverse proxy that reverse proxies into some particular path, then you might actually need to and if then also that weird thing about the proxy path, the proxy URI comes in, then you might really have both legitimately. It's weird to access a well-known resource on a reverse proxy that goes into a path, but probably also not completely impossible.
Okay.
Hi, Martin and Nikolai. We haven't officially started yet. We give a couple of minutes more, as usual. We are a consistent mass already.
Yeah, I was a bit confused because UTC and CET and was, am I late? But no, it's all right.
Always for discussion.
Yeah, I just wanted to use the time to give Christian some more time to react to my points.
Of course, like any option can say that it limits what proxies should do with it, but I don't think we should rule this out here completely. But I can certainly do a better job in explaining kind of where this comes from, and that this is a niche thing that only servers have to do, that put themselves behind a reverse proxy, and putting yourself behind a reverse proxy is something that kind of the server has to be okay with.
Right. Nikolai, do you actually want to talk about your core PM review? We don't currently have an agenda item for that.
Not really necessary. It was just I noted it down from last time that I wanted to have a review, and but I think everything I wanted to say is in the email.
Okay, great.
Shall we start, Carsten?
Yes, please.
Let's do that. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the last core interim meeting for this year. I'm Marco, my co-chairs are Jaime and Carsten. And as usual, the not well apply, get familiar with that if you're not already, or please ask more questions on some details. This is about our code of conduct, so be nice and professional with one another. It's also about IPRs. You have to disclose your personal knowledge about those if you have any, or you can not participate in the technical discussion related to those otherwise. We have a nice agenda today, starting with correction and clarifications for co-op, tight related with the URI path abbreviation in co-op document that is approaching working group as goal. And then we have 2 individual submissions that following IETF 124 received some reviews and are candidate for working group adoption. Any agenda bashing or more items? Okay, if none, we can start with Corklar. I have some pointers to some resources. What do you want me to share, Karsten?
The web page that is in the chat.
Right. Let's see if I can select the right screen.
Okay, I think I can
Ooh.
start talking anyway. Yeah, that looks almost good.
Let's see if this works.
Interesting. Yeah, so we had this discussion about issue 52, and I promised to write up some text that ultimately is going to go into the URI path abref document, because that's the next document that is normative and that is coming out of the working group. This motivates the change. I don't know if we want to have much of that motivation in the normative text, but of course we could copy this motivation here. And the observation is that for handling critical options, we have 2 cases for confirmable messages. Me.alpha. Okay. I think we will have time for that. Typically, if you are a client and are using a critical option that is unrecognized by the server, you get 402 bad option response, and you can use that to adjust your expectation of what options the server actually can handle. The other critical options in a response really just cause the response to be rejected, where being rejected for a response really just means it's silently ignored because there's nothing useful you can do there. So this is for the confirmable case. And then if you scroll down a little bit more, for the non-confirmable case, only the rejection case is in there. So this essentially means a server must not send back a 402 bad option response to a non-confirmable request. And that is not only surprising, it also now causes a problem where we have a document that explains how to use bad option for a discovery or negotiation process, and suddenly that process doesn't work for non-confirmable messages. And I couldn't find a reason why we are doing this wholesale thing for non-confirmable messages. Yeah, that may be one more symptom of something that I have a mistake I have made more often by just thinking some part of standard is not so important and we don't have to fully support everything in there, but that always comes back to bite you, and it has come back now. So the idea is to replace this single case, which is under incorrect, down on the page by the same two cases we have for confirmable. I didn't try to factor out This because there is a difference in the non-confirmable case. Of course, the server only should return a response. The server might also simply ignore the non-confirmable request. So the must from above becomes a should here. And in the second bullet item, the section that this points to is 4.3 and not 4.2. So this is slightly ugly. The result of applying this change is slightly ugly, but it's very explicit, and it will be hard to get this wrong. So I didn't try to touch the text that we are not actually technically changing, but rather add new text for the case that we had not handled right before. So as I said, this should go into the URI path abref document. At least it's a convenient place to put this. We might get some IESG response that this should be a separate document. But I think we are already updating 7252. Not sure about that. Are we?
No, so far it's not an update.
Okay, then we would have to change that. So I would just put it into the document, and if the ISG really wants it to be two documents, we can always split this up.
Yeah, it's worth trying.
Yeah, and I have this short paragraph where the cursor is right now at that tries to assess the damage, and clearly existing implementations will not immediately change their behavior, so the discovery process still has to handle the case that it gets something less definitive than the 402 bad option would be, but the likelihood of this slightly uncertain situation will reduce over time as implementations pick up this change. And client implementations that encounter a server that is updated but that are not updated themselves will get a response they didn't expect. And well, the normal situation will be they will simply reject the message. Of course, we might trigger a bug, but that would be a bug in any case, because anybody could send such a message to trip up the client. So I think the damage is actually very limited here.
Sorry, Esker, did you?
Oh, yeah. I did have one question because we are now looking at the text in, I think it's the core clarifications document.
Yes.
So the idea was to port some of this text over to URI path abref. Is that right?
Yeah, that could, the whole section could simply become an appendix or a new section. That's another thing. Some ISG people don't like appendices of the URI path abref document.
Okay, to update that aspect. Okay. That should be fine unless somebody objects to the fact that it gets kind of shoved into this document, but okay. Seems good.
Yeah, of course, it needs a sentence in the abstract that says that we update 7252 to improve handling of unrecognized critical options in non-confirmable requests.
Oh, maybe just add one thing. What we have today, I think in URI path abref, is also the machine readable version of, I think, telling which option was the problem, if I remember correctly. So it was using the new sort of the error reporting.
Yes.
In the diagnostic payload. So do we also want to have that specifically, or do we just say any diagnostic payload?
Well, 9290 is not diagnostic payload. Exactly. So we have a paragraph on that. The actual detail of how this looks like in UiPath iBref is somewhere else in the UiPath iBref document. We could point there from here. But the observation is that the should has become much less compelling by the existence of 9290 because we now have a way to have a machine processable response.
Yes, so if we have that, it kind of might be preferable to having just a string which can be any format, right?
Yeah, that would be the diagnostic payload.
Yeah, that's the string basically. But yeah, do you also have that, or I don't know for sure how it works. So do we have just the machine readable payload or also the human readable payload the same?
Both are possible. There's currently a should on the diagnostic payload on the string.
Mm-hmm.
And this text reduces the shouldness of this should.
The shouldness, okay. Yeah. Okay.
It essentially becomes a should unless you have a better idea, and now we do have a better idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the topic of like whether this should move in with UiPath iBref, I'm generally fine with it. But I'd like to ask Marco or Jaime as chairs to kind of help me a bit, kind of nailing down that this is really a direction which the working group wants to go, because otherwise I don't want UPA to be slowed down in the working group last call stage just because of it. So if I don't know what you think is the best way of getting to him. I see John in the room today, whom at least I know to be an implementer of the other behavior. So maybe you could say a bit of like, what do you think of this?
Yes, please.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think we do need the 402s in there as a way of coming back in terms of.
Sorry, John, you're very faint. Could you speak up a bit?
Okay, is that better?
Christian, can you mute because you're louder than John?
Yeah. Is that better at all?
A bit.
A bit. Okay, let me just try. Does that make any difference? I'll yell from my end. Okay.
Yelling is good.
So from the 402 perspective, yes, I'm very much for that in terms of discovery. In terms of the diagnostic message, it would be nice to have clarity, but I don't think that needs to be a part of UPA. I think that will slow people down a bit.
Yeah, so some text will remain in corrections and clarifications, and that text definitely will talk about this should.
Yeah, that basically works for me.
So it seems a good idea to have this content in UPA anyway, and people at the meeting today are in favor, and does anyone have any objection?
We could do a poll.
Sure. I need to stop sharing the screen to really do those things. I'm a bit locked right now. But let's say I stop.
Yeah, let me just do the poll.
Yes. It's nice to be back. So the change is moving the content from that PR into the UPA document.
Yes. Well, making the change in the first place, so which is kind of a prerequisite, that it makes sense to move it in the UiPath iBref document. So we have a 820. Any last minute hands?
Which is impressive in a room of 9.
Okay, so I close the poll with 800.
Thank you.
Thanks. Christian, I suggest to produce very soon, if you can, a new version of the draft with the section in and mentioning the update to 7252 in the header and abstract. And we have a working group plus call on that version. And that would be also the way to really confirm also about this particular update.
Will do. Speaking of which, I've received a review from ESCO, which I haven't had the time to pull in, so I'll process that just as well. And Carsten made a few remarks in private communication / noted that now in the minutes about odd corner cases. I'll update the wording on all of those to make sure that nothing is left unaddressed. So thank you both for your input. That will be part of the next revision.
So that's the next agenda item anyway. So I'm done.
Yeah, if we have this next version, we can even start working group plus call before the end of this week. So
Yes,
it's
please.
completed well in time before the Christmas break.
Yeah.
Thanks. ESCO.
Yeah, I just want to add, I did the review actually and found that, to my taste at least, some of the things were not crisp and clear enough. So in the review, I have made a PR for that and using often more words to describe a concept, but it's more specific in that case. So I think that's better to be more on the specific side of things to really point to the things with the right terminology and also explain what words like expand means or abbreviate in this context, just to get that clear. And I hope that other people agree with that as well, that it's not too detailed or too picky, but well, I'll let Christian judge that.
Yeah, I've read through this, not processed it in through yet, but like there are one or two things where I'll kind of object, but generally those are very, very good inputs, and the document was written quite quickly.
Yes.
Those changes make it not look like that.
Okay, very good. Yeah, let me know.
Thanks for reviewing. Okay, then we have a clear path forward for this. And so I'm pretty sure we covered the item on Corklar. Do you consider covered also the item on UPA, Christian? Or do you have more?
No, I don't have anything more to say. Carsten has.
Yeah, I said that before the meeting started. There is something that surprised me a little bit in section 2.4 about appending URI path abref path components to an existing proxy URI. I think we should all have a second look at that. In the end, Christian convinced me that this is the right thing to do, but it was surprising to me a little bit.
I'll mention that explicitly in the list mail on changes in the document.
Okay.
And that was in 6.2, you said, right?
2.4?
Or which section was that text that looked suspicious?
Well, not suspicious. It was surprising.
Yes.
Yeah, section 2.4, interaction with other options. The third paragraph says if you find a proxy URI and a URI path abref, you might have to append the URI path abref to the proxy URI, which is surprising unless you really think about the fact that this is a reverse proxy situation, and the URI path abref might be added by a reverse proxy.
I thought it might be, could it be from the original client actually that contacts a proxy and the proxy is not aware of the option and keeps it in?
Well, if the original client contacts a proxy on their own, that proxy has no knowledge of the server and doesn't just spuriously introduce URI path options. That's only something that that proxies that know the server do. And unfortunately, I think I'll have to expand that text a bit, because even if no proxy scheme shenanigans are happening, a reverse proxy might still do this. But then again, given that a reverse proxy is something basically that receives a mandate from the origin server to act on a particular path, because otherwise the reverse proxy will break already when there are references and so on, I think I'll be able to rewrite this in such a way that it is guidance to the server operator who starts using this option and then introduces a reverse proxy so that it doesn't come up in the first place.
Okay, yeah, maybe the example I gave is that the client is not behaving correctly in the first place. So it includes proxy URI and URI path abref. And then the proxy doesn't know URI path abref, so it would just leave it in, I guess.
Yeah, well, if the client pushes in that place, then yes, it will hurt.
Okay. But yeah, I'll take another look.
Karsten?
Yep, done.
Okay, then we expect a new version soon. And the next item we have in the agenda is Copa Regat. Yeah, reviews were promised. They're a bit different than the originally promised set, but we got one from Carlos, one from me, one from Nikolai. Thank you. If you had already looked at them, Christian, do you want to give an overview of some key points?
Yes, I'd like to. First of all, thank you all three for reviewing this. There are a lot of this is really like fixing my editorial mistakes. There are a few aspects that I'd like to highlight. One is that Carlos mentioned explicitly the aspect of shook, and that is something where there are like two modes of it, I'd say. One is, of course, you could use shake with it as with everything else. The other mode is that in theory, and at least with earlier versions of the document, in a sense, you could use shik to retcon a regular GAT property that doesn't know anything of co-op, to view it under the lens of a co-op resource. With a lot of downsides being that like you can't use the co-op security mechanisms, and like after all, it is not a co-op resource, but so I think those will need to be treated differently, because using shake is probably a good idea there. If there are bandwidth concerns, the other thing is really something kind of to experiment with outside of the scope of the document. Yeah, other aspects that you brought up. Yeah, unordered writes over mesh BLE is something where I'd love to get a bit input from anyone else who has been working with BLE. I think we can realistically rule it out in many cases, because the MTUs are just like way different. But I'll do some reading up on this, and anyone with BLE experience, please let me know. my favorite review item was the title. Can we convince RFC editor that yes, co-op is something that people know, and that if someone needs that acronym expanded in the title already, they will not have fun with that document anyway?
Yeah, that is a good question, and we should take this up with the RFC editor. We maybe even should get some support from the ISG here by calling this out in an editorial comment. Yeah, I think it's about time that co-op goes into this list. Maybe I should do a little survey here.
What else did I note down? Yeah, normativity is something I'll just like go over along with the rest of the comments. Same with the message ID, one single bit message ID. That is something that I know will need some getting used to by readers, and I'll need to be very clear editorially what this does and how it behaves, and especially how it behaves when people try to do the funny tricks that everything is designed to support, where I don't generally want to spell out those tricks because it will give people ideas to like, yeah, you kind of, people will want to overuse it. So if anyone has like general guidance on how to act in such a situation, I'd be very glad of that.
Thank you. Nikolai.
Yeah, just on that last point, if you say you put in some possibilities of like for extended usage or some tricks, but then you don't want people to use it really, why do you put them in the first place?
It's not so much not want to. I'm happy if people use it, but if I put that in the main document, people will start to think that they have to implement that. And I think that was happened. That was what happened when the students you accompanied started implementing this. I've worked a bit in the direction of making this better by describing like a minimal usage, and describing that implementing that minimal usage also allows your peers to do anything fancy, but like as long as you do the minimal thing, your peers can work with it. Might just need better phrasing. So maybe I can elaborate on that in an appendix. The general thing is things such as notifications, where you want to have just eventual consistency, or requests for observations where you want to update the e-tags. If you have situations where you know that it is fine if the peer does not receive that message because it will eventually all work out anyway, you're just optimizing, then you can do things like send a message again even though you did not increment the message ID. But that's a very, very niche application, and the design should be, and I think it is, such that if you do the simple thing, kind of everything will work with you. And if you do elaborate things, you have to be careful when doing that.
I see. So maybe I would be in favor of explicitly writing out some of that, or to maybe and like explicitly state that it's not mandatory in any way to support that, and you can just refer to the simple usage, maybe in an appendix or something. But still, I think if you have those things in mind, and yeah, readers will probably not have them in mind, and then they will maybe just be confused about why it is so complicated, or why there are so many possibilities of doing stuff that is not beyond the simple usage. Yeah, if they don't have the ideas in mind that you have in mind.
Yes, I think that's something I can go with.
Great, thanks. So considering, I think we can start an adoption call on this. Okay for you, Karsten?
Yeah, definitely. So we can still tweak the content, but we think this is a document we want to work on. That would the adoption say, and also implicitly we think it's in the charter.
Yeah, it's a non-IP transport work. It happened before. Okay, so we'll do. Next, more or less on the same track, is another document, non-traditional responses. That was also presented at IETF 124. There were some reviews promised more or less around those days. One was for me, it's given. I'm aware of one more review, at least upcoming soon from Joran. And there may be more. Any comment or highlight on my review, Christian? You wanted to check, or Karsten?
I haven't had time to look at it yet.
No problem. Do you want to say anything, Christian?
Yes, and if I unmute the right channel, I even do. Yeah, thanks for the input as Kim did. Looks all like good points. I'll just have to work on them in.
Sure. Yeah, and I just reiterate my personal, as an individual opinion on this. I think it's good content that we would have needed before, because it sets a common ground on a number of things, sometimes not intuitive, that have developed anyway on their own in other documents. And it'd be good to not reinvent the wheel on this, risking to make mistakes. So personally, I like to have a document around clarifying these concepts in a single way. So I think this is still time to consider a working group adoption call of this. Is there any objection on considering this document as a working group item? Not that I hear, and not that was heard in Montreal. So I will also start the working group adoption call on this document. So we're likely are going to have running in parallel one working group plus call and two working group adoption calls. Please do your best to have a look at all three documents. Okay. Thank you on this too. And we have an extra item suggested by Esme in the chat at the beginning of the meeting. The me.arpa.
Yes, that's right. So I can quickly recap that by sharing my screen, for example, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, just share the screen with an example here. This was the discussion that we actually had before about being able to kind of abbreviate or simplify the address that comes up in the core link format. So you can see that here. That's where it now says me.arpa in the response. So the situation is in co-op discovery using unsecured co-op, and the responses are always pointing to some secured co-op port. And the host basically offering this service is always the same node or host as the one sending the response. So the idea was that you can basically get the IP address of that responder, because it's basically the IP address of the co-op response in this case. And that will be used to make the next contact, for example, the secured service here. And this example comes from the Brewski joint proxy work. Now here, instead of link local address, which normally would be here, that now basically has me.arpa here. And now the idea was, in the discussion we had on the mailing list, that this could be used as a substitute for me, basically. So whoever is sending this is basically saying, okay, this address means in this context the source IP address of the message that contains this link format document. So this is generally how you could solve that. And I thought it would not have the disadvantage that we saw before for one of the other solutions that were proposed before. And in that other solution, I don't even remember exactly which name we had, but there was the ambiguity problem. I think the unspecified address was basically there, and this is really unspecified what happens in implementations. If you have something new like this sort of a fixed short name, yeah, you could basically avoid that ambiguity and then define more precisely what it means. So I think the question was for the core working group. So is there any feedback on this, or any negatives or reasons why we should not do this? Or maybe we should do this.
So I just looked at the IANA registries. There is an IANA registry for special use domain names.
Right.
That is referencing 6761, which I haven't read. So I think before I have an actual opinion on this, I have to do that.
Well, no, I think, or maybe yes, but it was not the intention to use anything that's already there, because it's most likely not the right.
No, we would have to register something there.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm assuming that 6761, which established this registry, has some information about how it is supposed to be used or not.
Okay, oh, that's what you mean. Okay, yeah.
And the registration procedure is standards action or ISG approval. So
Right.
this would be something that we best put into a document that is standards track anyway, so we don't have it as an isolated document. That's bike shedding. That's inviting bike shedding. Yeah, procedurally, I think we should find a document where this fits in and just put it there.
Okay, that would be for example, the Cbrews key join proxy definition. So that's a document that's ongoing and wants to use that if that would be available.
Yeah, sounds good. So this would be in the Anima working group.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, the idea was to you could say like, okay, we're going to use that specifically for this joint proxy context only, but yeah, the question is also, would it be more generically applicable? So basically for discovery, when the device basically wants to point to a secured service at the same available at the same IP address. Because normally if you return unsecured co-op resources, you don't have to repeat the scheme and the host and the port. You just include the resource name basically.
Yeah.
And now the idea was, well, you can do the same actually for secured resources, having some stand-in name if you want. So you don't need to repeat the IP address over and over for every resource that you return. So it would be a little bit shorter.
Yeah, that also would be ROMable, which would the same thing without me.apa would not be ROMable because the IP address would change. We always had this idea that 6690 documents should be ROMable because they should be pretty static descriptions of what the device can do, and for a simple device there is no need to actually compute that, but the text can simply be in the ROM, in the flash at some point, and this would extend the number of cases where this ROMability is available.
Okay. I didn't hear ROMability before, but okay, that's the think what you can do with this indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just hope that I took down the word in the correct spelling.
I don't know how to spell that. So I would be on the more in the direction of making this available in a general way and not just in the context of Cbrews key, just submarine it in that document, because that's something we have to operate through the ISG anyway.
Yeah, is there a reason to have that included in another document instead of a separate one?
No, just simplification of
Time.
processing. So if somebody asks for splitting it, I would just go ahead and split it.
Right. That sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, I need to leave the queue so everybody else can say something.
Yeah. So I'm conflicted about this. So for other cases, such as like compressing many co-op as paths, other formats than 6690 just have a way of setting a base URI, which is something that 3986 well supports. It's just that 6690 kind of chose not to use this. And even without this, there is the option of the transport indication mechanisms to express that, yeah, everything I'm saying here applies really to the co-op as URI as well. So for just those cases of talking about something available on different transports, there might be better options, but I have not explored them in full. So
okay, yeah, this is only on one transport, by the way, so only co-op S here.
Yeah. As for the topic of registration, the most recent one in that registry that I know of that kind of has expertise from here is in CoJP. So have a look at over there what they put in the registration template and the reviews that they got on that topic.
There was 60 related, maybe.
60. Yeah. So I think it's 60. It's 60.APA or something.
Right.
One question about like if all the other options don't work here, how pressing is that? I mean, you know well enough about, like I'm always for shaving down bits, but it has to fit in the ecosystem. And is there like how often how large messages are transported with this compared to FE80 : 2 or 3 bytes if someone is using, for example, 6LoWPAN and signed addresses?
Yeah, I did have that included, I think, an analysis in the prior presentation. So it was in the Anima working group. I don't have it open right now. It's not, I would say it's not a highly pressing need in terms of the size of the message. I think it was more about basically avoiding the need to encode an actual IP address as hexadecimal in this link, and while it's not even used. So that was a bit of a problem. To get a correct link, you would have to encode the actual address using a hexadecimal ASCII, or UTF-8. So I'm not even sure which. But,
and I do understand the pain about that. Yeah.
So that's I think the main driver. So that while it's not needed, so the other side doesn't parse it, just talks back to the address where the message came from, basically.
So it's really about like it behaves a lot like a base URI. It's just unfortunate that like we don't have a means of expressing URI resolution, but kind of keeping that part the same and changing the others. That is something we might also work around with CRIs, because they have the easier means to do that. Because if this is to be like integrated in the way you're describing it, I think it needs a lot of thinking about like how does it actually work with URIs, and what does all this mean when you're in a situation when the authority is a host name, when the authority, so for example, if you're sending a request to a URI host and it comes back, and then you establish TLS, do you send the server, does that go into the server name? Because if that were a host name, it would go in, and those kind of questions all around turning a co-op request from a URI into options. So I don't think that's insurmountable. It's just a lot of work that needs to go into that. And one final question: if we do this, can we also have u.arp for role reversal? Because role reversal URIs are something that we kind of shamefully neglected. I think we have even an item in core CLAR about like coming up with clear terminology about role reversal. So if we do this in one direction, might just do it in the other direction as well, provided there are no extra complications.
Okay, yeah, I haven't seen the case yet for the other direction, but yeah.
We kind of have that case implicitly in the arguments to in a resource directory registration. So when you say basically everything you post to resource directory has this implicit base address of kind of u.arpa in this terminology.
Okay. Yeah, so that could be an RD indeed, yes.
Nikolai?
Okay, so just to clarify, for someone who's not that experienced with the core link format, you said that if the resource was on the very same host with the same scheme and the same port, you could simply emit it. But if like if it's only the same host and another port and another scheme, then it's undefined behavior, right?
Yeah, I'm just typing something here. So this is for the unsecured resource. Basically, you just have yeah, this thing in brackets with the resource name or the path. And if it changes scheme, basically, then you would always need to include the full URI, like here. Yeah.
Would it be a possibility to somehow extend the link format by saying, okay, we have some way of saying we change the scheme or we change the port and retain whatever was there before for the other parts?
Yeah, I think that would be some sort of an update, right, of link format, and it seems a bit like a bigger project. And we do have link format follow-up formats, although I'm not sure about the status of that. There's, for example, CRIs for encoding URIs very efficiently. And we had in the past also, I think, a link format work for CBOR encoded link format.
Yeah, that is like, I think that went all into Coral, which is on my desk and a lot of work in progress. Thing is, even core even CRIs work on the concept of resolving URIs, and then you have a base URI and you perform this URI resolution process. Now, I think with CRIs we could more easily extend this to like describe a CRI reference that does not have an equivalent URI reference, and that does this operation. And come to think of it, I'd like that, but that will also depend on having a container format that replaces link format and uses CRIs. And sorry, we don't have that yet.
Okay, yeah, that would be future format. Yeah, so this link format is also used just because it's there for discovery and not because we think it's the most efficient encoding or for this case, but just because it's available. And it would be okay using the actual address in there, I think, but this was just seen as the kind of most efficient or simplest way to avoid that hexadecimal encoding and the and have it substituted by something fixed.
Yeah, I can't really assess what it would mean to update link format or add something to link format in that sense. But to me, like with not being involved in this kind of discussion before, or in this discussion before, it seems a bit like you try to solve a problem, but then by doing something kind of a bit unrelated, like registering me.arpa, which I think can be useful for other things as well, but it's maybe it's worth rethinking if that's the right solution to the problem.
Yeah, I think the target was specifically meant for use in link format documents, although there could be other usages outside of that. And yeah, it was still a bit like, okay, this is maybe the easiest way we can work around that issue. So now you do have a way to basically say the scheme changes, the port changes, but not the others. And maybe it would already update link format. I think this is quite well possible because link format defines also the specific relation here. So there is an implicit relation here specified that basically defines what the base URI is, and then /resource gets appended to that. So we might need some similar update of the formal logic if you want to do it correctly for this me.arpa case. For the joint proxy use case that it will be used for, all of that doesn't matter. It will just ignore the me.arpa and get the port number from the result.
Just to clarify, that thing about populating the default value is not related to the link relation that is implicit. So no matter whether or not the rel is present or implied here, that property of the base URI being set to the origin of the previous base URI, that's something hard coded in 6690. And if we changed that, that would be an update to 6690. Doing me.arpa would not be an update to 6690, but it would be something that affects URIs that should be usable with URIs everywhere, then not just 6690. So whoever does something with URIs could then use me.arpa as long as there is a base URI.
Yeah, okay, it could be for other things in that case, yeah. And the relation you mentioned is actually, it's probably implicit there for every link, right? And only for relative links like here,
it's implicit. It's implicit for all links, and if it's not a relative reference, you're either and leaving the implicit default in. You're either stating something slightly odd, or you generally you state something slightly off because it's like you're pointing somewhere else, but you're still saying that it's hosted here. Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into that implied host relationship.
Yeah, okay. Well, I thought it was, let me think. So there's the hosts relation that's also applied here. But yeah, because it's an absolute URI here, then that resolves differently from the line here, which is relative. So, okay.
You're still in the queue, Christian. Any more input?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
No more. Thanks. That's useful.
Thanks, Esko. Okay, unless there are other topics that you want to bring up, because we are on the AUB and heard and read none, I think we can conclude the meeting now, and we resume with the interim meetings of core on January 14. They are scheduled already. Same time, same cadence. I guess I'll see some of you again in 1 week at CBOR. Otherwise, thanks for the great work. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, everyone.
Well, see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Happy holidays. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.